Hello and welcome back to the Toffee Blues YouTube channel, your source for all things Everton. My name's Thomas and I'm back to bring you with all the latest transfer news. As the season has now concluded, the summer window is open. Seems to be looking a fairly bleak one for Everton. We don't have a tremendous amount to spend, probably going to be looking into the loan market and the free transfers market, which is where we start off today. Mark Douglas has reported in the iPaper that we will be utilising these two markets. We don't have a tremendous amount of money to spend, but if you want to find out more about what's going on behind the scenes at the club, check out the video that I did with the ESC the other day where we discussed potential investment, the status of Mashiri as the owner, and what might be coming up in the summer. I'll spoil it for you now. It's looking grim. We don't have a tremendous amount to spend as we have done in the past few years, but I think we're all kind of resigned to this. We've all accepted this for quite a few years now. So it'll be interesting to see how the club managed to strengthen, which we desperately need to do, especially at striker and at fullback, which is apparently, according to Mark, is where we are looking to reinforce. But we'll have to see if we can do that. Now, two names that he picked out for us. First of all, Moussa Dembele, of course, had spells at Fulham and at Celtic. His contract has just expired at Lyon after a fairly underwhelming spell. Made only 8 starts, 18 sub appearances, and only picked up 3 goals. So if he's the man that we're looking to fix our goal scoring woes, it seems unlikely that he will be the one. But as always, we asked you on Twitter what your thoughts were. Thank you to 4,000 of you, just under, that got back in touch with us, with an overwhelmingly positive 78% of you wanting to see him at Goodison next season, 14% unsure and 8% no. From my perspective, I'd have to disagree. I think he's not going to provide the goals that we desperately need. He's had injury problems. He hasn't made a tremendous amount of starts this year in Ligue 1, and it seems unlikely that anyone will ever sign him. Of course, he's been perennially linked seemingly with every bottom half Premier League club for years and years now. But now his contract's expired at Lyon, those rumours have resurfaced. We will have to see where he ends up in the summer. I, for one, hope it's not Everton. Yourselves on Twitter seem to be a big fan of him, so we'll have to see how that goes. And in terms of defensive reinforcement, Mark Douglas mentioned Ben Johnson from West Ham. Now, Ben Johnson, maybe a name we're slightly familiar with. We may have heard him before. He can play across the back line, primarily at right back, but he's also played at centre back this season as well, making 23 appearances, 8 of those as a substitute. He's not exactly set the world alight this year. Of course, he is still a very young player, and if the club are looking to get value for money, it may be one. He may be a player that they look to. As with Moussa Dembele, we asked you on Twitter what your thoughts were. 1,800 of you responded to this poll, with 41% of you saying yes, you'd like to sign him, 33% are unsure, and 26% no. So clearly, a bit more of a spread on the votes this time. Maybe people are a bit more uncertain about Ben Johnson. We'll have to see if Moussa Dembele and Ben Johnson are the players that the club go for. But as I mentioned earlier, we're going to have to be pragmatic this summer. We're going to have to find deals, because we need to desperately reinforce the club so we don't end up in a similar situation to this year. But at the moment, it seems like we might struggle to do that. Next up, though, moving on from the iPaper, we've got Fabrizio Romano reporting that we are interested in Wout Weghorst. Weghorst, of course, going back to Burnley this summer. Started the season on loan at Besiktas after getting relegated with Burnley last year. He clearly didn't fancy the Championship, where he was in very impressive form. That clearly impressed Erik ten Hag enough to want to take over that loan at Manchester United, where I'm sure we've all seen plenty of his performances this year. He's clearly not up to it. Only scoring 2 goals on his return, neither of them in the Premier League. Of course, he scored those 2 fantastic goals for the Netherlands that maybe rose his stock slightly in the World Cup, that weird World Cup we had in the middle of the season, which definitely affected the transfer window. But it looks like he's probably not going to stay at Burnley. A potential fee of €10 million could tempt him away. For me, it's very tricky to say yes to, of course. He had that fantastic couple of seasons in the Bundesliga, started tremendously in Turkey this year, but the Premier League, clearly, he's not cut out for it potentially. He struggled at Burnley, of course. They got relegated the season that they signed him as their main goal scorer. He's ended up at United, and they're not going to make that permanent, definitely. So we asked you on Twitter, as we have with all the other transfers, what your thoughts were. 3,600 of you got back in touch. Slightly more negative on this one. 17% said yes, 16% unsure, and 67% said that you didn't want to sign him. I'd have to agree with the 67% there. I'm not sure he's going to come in and fix all our goal scoring problems. The same with Moussa Dembele, but we are going to have to look for value. So it's not like if I do a few more of these over the summer about the transfer news that we are going to have to try and get excited about something, because the players that we are going to be linked with are not going to be world beaters. They're not going to be for particularly high transfer fees. And it'll be interesting to see how Dyche and Thelwell and everyone else at the club managed to navigate this summer to try and reinforce us to avoid a relegation battle next year. Now, next up, still in the striking department from The Athletic, a man who we've been linked with plenty of times before, Southampton's Che Adams, of course been relegated with Southampton this year. A man who's never exactly scored thousands of goals in the Premier League. He's not been a particularly prolific goal scorer at the top level. Done pretty well in the Championship, of course, why Southampton signed him. Picked up 10 goals this year. 5 of them were in that League Cup campaign, with the other 5 coming in the league. 40 appearances in total, with 8 as a substitute. Clearly, Southampton will be looking to potentially get money for him. That'll be the same with the rest of the relegated sides as well. They're going to have to try and create some funds from selling players, and players won't want to drop into the Championship. Forest are also apparently interested to see if they can add some more goals to their team next year. For me, Che Adams is, again, I don't want to sound overwhelmingly negative, but these are the players that we will be linked with this summer. He hasn't exactly set the world alight in terms of goal scoring. Could he come in and replace Calvert-Lewin if he has consistent spells of injury again? We'll have to see. And next up, we've got a few rumours, which we definitely have to take with a pinch of salt, as all transfer rumours this summer, but these we are probably looking as the more unlikely ones. Sports Witness have reported via L'Equipe that Angers defender Batista Mendy is potentially on the club's radar this year, as well as Wolves and Forest. The player is available potentially for €6 million, 23 years old. He is a central defender, but it seems that he's made more appearances at central midfield and defensive midfield this year. Not a position that I'd like to see us spend money on this summer, purely because if there's not a tremendous amount of it to go around, I don't think that's the most urgent of departments that we need to reinforce. And his club, Angers, did finish rock bottom of Liga in this year, have been relegated. He didn't have a particularly successful campaign. Again, have to take that one with a pinch of salt. Could be his agent trying to get him a move away from the relegated side. We'll have to see. Hasn't had a tremendous year this year, but as I said, taking these rumours with a pinch of salt, it's probably unlikely that we'll see him at the club towards the end of the summer. Next up, from Tutto Salerno in Italy, Salernitana midfielder Lasana Koulibaly is apparently of interest to the club. Apparently, an inquiry has been made. Made 35 appearances this year from central midfield, 3 goals and 3 assists. Once again, I think it's unlikely the club are going to be looking to reinforce at central midfield, especially with the extension of Abdoulaye Doucouré's contract, and when there's such pressing needs elsewhere, as I've named fullback and striker, it's hard to see why limited funds would be spent on a central midfielder. So that's another one to take with a pinch of salt. And our final rumour of the day, coming from Liverpool Echo, is a link with Kenyan striker Michael Olunga. He has allegedly scored 40 goals this season. Sounds exciting until you remember that was in the Qatari League. He currently plays for Al Dalal, 29 years old. I mean, fantastic record. I can't deny him that, but it's unlikely that he could replicate that in the Premier League. The Qatar League, of course, a completely different standard, and it's hard to see that rumour coming off, if we're all being honest. It's not one I want to see. We didn't even bother asking you on this one because I think it's highly unlikely that we will see Olunga come to the club. 40 goals, don't get me wrong. I'm really pleased for him. It's probably very, very good goal scoring record. But whether he could replicate that in the Premier League, I think is highly unlikely. And I also think it's highly unlikely that we will be making a move for him this summer. But thank you all very much for watching. Please let me know down below your thoughts on all the transfer rumours I've discussed today. This is probably going to be a fairly bleak summer. We're probably going to be discussing a lot of loan targets, free transfer targets, as I said. And not quite the excitement of, the summer of Allen, Abdoulaye Doucouré and James Rodriguez under the Ancelotti season. Seems like we are a world away from that now, with very minimal funds to spend. But thank you all very much for watching, and join us next time on the Toffee Blues. Goodbye.